Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. Tonight, we're going to start off where we left off last night on the alien interview. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. I'm having a lot of fun doing this show, and it's been a real eye opener. A lot of good comments. If you want the PDF for this, let me know. I'll be happy to send it out. So with that, let's continue on right where we left off. But I appreciate everybody here tonight for coming and spending their valuable time with me and checking this out. It's an eye opener, and maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. We've talked about this several times, so I shouldn't harp on it. But if you watch all the episodes, it's really good. If you want to comment or come on the show and we'll talk about it, let me know. Link is in the description below. Well, anyway, give me a thumbs up, share it out. We're trying to grow the channel as best as I can. And with that, let's get right into it as the chat room fills up with people tonight. So let's start right on. Let me present this and screen share, because who doesn't want to screen share? Okay, so here we go. So last night Ariel is telling what's her name to got the book right here, telling Matilda, and if you haven't seen that, let's see, it's this book right here, Alien Interview. So remember, she's a nurse. She doesn't really have any technical skills. She is just she's the only one the alien Ariel will talk with. So, that seems to be how it is. Anyway, talks about how this is a prison planet from the old empire, and the domain has taken it over. And some of their soldiers have been caught, and this is what happens to us when we die. So, when the body of the Isby dies, they depart from the body. They are detected by the force screen, and they are captured and ordered by hypnotic command to return to the light. Yes, go to the light. Go to the light, my child. You'll be fine. Anyway, ordered by the hypnotic command to return to the light. The idea of heaven and the afterlife and are part of the hypnotic suggestion, a part of the treachery that makes the whole mechanism work. After the Isby has been shocked and hypnotized to erase the memory of the life just lived, this Isby is immediately commanded hypnotically to report back to Earth as though they were on a secret mission to inhabit a new body. Each Isby is told that they have a special purpose for being on Earth, but of course there is no purpose for being in prison, at least not for the prisoners. Yeah, that's right. Any undesirable Isbys who are sentenced to Earth were classified as untouchable by the old empire. This included anyone that the old empire judged to be criminals who are too vicious to be reformed or subdued, as well as other criminals such as sexual perverts or beings unwilling to do any productive work. An untouchable classification of Isby also includes, let's do this. Okay, includes a wide variety of political prisoners. This includes Isbys who are considered to be non-compliant, free thinkers, or revolutionaries who make trouble for the governments of various planets of the old empire. Of course, anyone with a previous military record against the old empire is also shipped off to Earth. So, if you look around, our world is literally filled with free thinkers, revolutionaries, people who are politicals, people who are criminals, sexual perverts, and a lot of people unwilling to work and do anything productive. That comprises pretty much everyone, don't you think? There we go. Okay. A list of untouchables, including artists, painters. Hey, that's part of our world too. Singers, musicians, writers, actors, performers of every kind, For this reason, Earth has more artists per capita than any other planet in the old empire. That kind of makes sense because it seems like everybody here is an artist, a painter, a singer, a musician, writer, actor. Man, look at me. I'm on YouTube here. I'm an actor. I'm a performer. Oh my gosh. How many of you wrote a book? How many of you are a magician, a musician, or a singer? Wow. Okay. Untouchables also include intellectuals, inventors. Oh my God, we got a bunch of them too. And geniuses in almost every field, since everything the old empire considers valuable has long since been invented or created over the last few trillion years. They have no further use for such beings. These include skilled managers also, which are not needed in a society of obedient robotic citizens. Well, it almost sounds too real, doesn't it? Wow. I mean, think about it. That is like crazy, isn't it? Ah, but anyway, let's go on. Anyone who's willing or unable to submit to the mindless economic, political, and religious servitude, you know what? How much you want to bet that North Korea is the place where all those people that really get to go free go to? They're in complete servitude. But anyway, anyone who is not willing or able to submit to mindless economic, political, and religious servitude as a tax-paying worker in the class system of the old empire are untouchable and sentenced to receive memory wipeout and permanent imprisonment on Earth. Wow. So the old empire was set up with a tax system, and yeah, just like Earth. Well, there you go. That explains it all in a nutshell. The net result is that an ISB is unable to escape because they can't remember who they are, where they came from, where they are, and they have been hypnotized to think they are someone, something, sometime, and somewhere other than where they really are. The domain officer who was assassinated while in the body of Archduke of Australia was likewise captured by the old empire force. Because of this particular officer was a high-powered ISB compared to most, he was taken away to a secret old empire base under the surface of the planet Mars. They put him into a special electronic prison cell and held him there. Fortunately, this domain officer was able to escape from the underground base after 27 years in captivity. When he escaped from the old empire base, he returned immediately to his own base in the asteroid belt. His commanding officer ordered that a battle cruiser be dispatched to the coordinates of the base provided by this officer and to destroy that base completely. This old empire base was located a few hundred miles north of the equator on Mars, in the Sidona region. Although the military base of the old empire was destroyed, unfortunately, much of the vast machinery of the ISB force screens, the electroshock, the amnesia, the hypnosis machines continues to function in their undiscovered locations right up to the present moment. The main base or control center for this mind control prison operation has never been found. So the influences of this base or bases are still in effect. The domain has observed that since the old empire space forces were destroyed, there is no one left to actively prevent other planetary systems from bringing their own untouchables, ISBs, to Earth from all over this galaxy and from other galaxies nearby. Therefore, Earth has become a universal dumping ground for this entire region of space. Wow. Okay, this in part explains the very unusual mix of races, cultures, languages, moral codes, religious and political influences among the ISB population on Earth. The number and variety of heterogeneous societies on Earth are extremely unusual on a normal planet. Most Sun Type 12 Class 7 planets are inhabited by only one humanoid body type or race, if any. In addition, most of the ancient civilizations of Earth and many of the events of Earth have been heavily influenced by the hidden hypnotic operation of the old empire base. So far, no one has figured out exactly where and how this operation is run, or by whom, because it is so heavily protected by screens and traps. Furthermore, there has been no operation undertaken to seek out, discover, and destroy the vast and ancient network of electronic machinery that create the ISB force screens at this end of the galaxy. Until this has been done, we are not able to prevent or interrupt the electronic shock operation, hypnosis, and remote thought control of the old Empire prison planet. Of course, all of the crew members of the Domain Expeditionary Force now remain aware of this phenomena at all times while operating in this solar system space so as to prevent detection and the capture by the old Empire traps. Chapter 8. Well, isn't that interesting? I think that explains a whole lot. If you want to find out about religion or anything like that, or how to escape this, there's all you need to know in a nutshell. Chapter 8, a lesson in recent history. This interview taught me a history lesson I will never read in any textbook written on Earth. The Domain has a much different view of events than we do. Top secret. 1947. The Domain Expeditionary Force has observed a resurgence in science and culture of the Western world since 1150 AD, when the remaining remnants of the space fleet of the old empire in the solar system were destroyed. The influence of the remote control hypnosis operation diminished slightly after that time, but still remains largely in force. Apparently, a small amount of damage was done to the old empire remote mind control operation, which resulted in a small decrease in the power of this mechanism. As a result, some memory of technologies that the ISBs already knew before they came to Earth started to be remembered. Thereafter, the oppression of knowledge that is called the Dark Ages in Europe began to diminish after that time. Since then, knowledge of the basic laws of physics and electricity have revolutionized Earth culture virtually overnight. The ability to remember technology by many of the geniuses in the ISB population of Earth was partially restored, when not so actively suppressed as it was before 1150 AD. Sir Isaac Newton is one of the best examples of this. In only a few decades, he single-handedly reinvented several major and fundamental scientific mathematical disciplines. Newton invented a whole new system of mathematics. Did you know that? Yeah, Newton, he literally invented a new way to do math. How ingenious is that? He was like super genius. Okay, the men who remembered these, I bet you Tesla was one of those guys too. The men who remembered these sciences already knew them before they were sent to Earth. Ordinarily, no one would ever observe or discover as much about science and mathematics in a single lifetime, or even in a few hundred lifetimes. These subjects have taken civilizations billions and billions of years to create. ISBs on Earth have only just begun to remember small fragments of all the technologies that exist throughout the universe. Theoretically, if the amnesia mechanisms being used against Earth could be broken entirely, ISBs would regain all of their memory. This could be dangerous, I'm thinking. You know why? Because if you remember bits and pieces, so say you invent mathematics one way, or like right now, say you invent the nuclear age, but then you don't remember how to use it, but you only know how to abuse it. And then you invent robots and you don't really know how to control them. You can mix the two together and you don't know what the end result's going to be. You're going to have to start out at square one, which would have took civilizations billions of years to, or millions or hundreds of thousands anyway, to figure out how to use them together. And instead, you're doing it overnight in a few hundred years. Think of what kind of catastrophes that could happen. And the very unusual combination of inmates on Earth, criminals, perverts, artists, revolutionaries, and geniuses, is the cause of a very recentive and tumultuous environment. The purpose of this prison planet is to keep ISBs on Earth forever, promoting ignorance, superstition, and war between ISBs. Helps to keep the prison population crippled and trapped behind the wall of electronic force screens. Yeah, you notice how we have these big jumps in technology when there's no war. And now look at, we're about ready to go to war. And if we go to this war, we'll be going back to the Stone Age, people. So we don't want that. We don't want that. ISBs have been dumped on Earth from all over the galaxy, adjoining galaxies and planetary systems all over the old empire, like Sirius, Aldebaran, the Pleiades, Orion, Draconis, and countless others. See, this is why everybody says, "Oh, I'm a Palladian, I'm a Sirius, I'm from Orion." See, because they are. Don't you ever feel like maybe you don't belong here? You came from somewhere else? Could this be? There are ISBs on Earth from unnamed races, civilizations, cultural backgrounds, and planetary environments. Each of the various ISBs populations have their own languages, belief systems, moral values, religious beliefs, training, and unknown, untold histories. These ISBs are mixed together with earlier inhabitants of Earth who came from another star system more than 400,000 years ago to establish the civilizations of Atlanta, and must be Atlantis, and Lemuria. Those civilizations vanished beneath the tidal waves caused by a planetary pole shift many thousands of years before the current prison population started to arrive. Apparently, the ISBs from those star systems were the source of the original or Oriental races of Earth, beginning in Australia. On the other hand, the civilization set up, remember, Australia says that they were the first people. They were here first. And that kind of coincides, doesn't it? On the other hand, the civilization set up here on Earth by the old empire prison system were very different from the civilizations of the old empire. In itself, which is an electronic space opera, atomic-powered conglomeration of earlier civilizations that were conquered with nuclear weapons and colonized by ISBs from other galaxies. From another galaxy. The bureaucracy which controlled the former old empire was from an ancient space opera society run by a totalitarian confederation of planetary governments, regulated by a brutal social and economic and political hierarchy, with a royal monarch as its figurehead. Wow. Just sounds like our world all over again on a bigger scale. This type of government emerges with regularity on planets where the citizens abandon personal responsibility for autonomous self-regulation. They frequently lose their freedom to determine to demented Isbies who suffer from overwhelming paranoia that every other Isbie is their enemy who must be controlled or destroyed. Their closest friends, allies, whom they espouse to love and cherish, are literally loved to death by them. Wow, that sounds like us too. We despise people. We're giving ourselves to autonomous self-regulation. We censor ourselves. We go to the kiosk. We wait on ourselves. We do everything ourselves. Oh my God, this is the whole same thing, isn't it? Because such Isbies exist, the domain has learned that freedom must be won and maintained through eternal vigilance and the ability to use defensive force to maintain it. As a result, the domain has already conquered the governing planets of the old empire. The civilization of the domain, although considerably younger and smaller in size, is already more powerful, better organized, and united by a egalitarian spirit de corps, never known in the history of the old empire. That sounds like United States of America, when they take over and, give life, liberty, and freedom to all. The recently despoiled German totalitarian state on Earth was similar to the old empire. Yep, there you go. But now not nearly as brutal. Oh my God, they could be more brutal in the German Empire there. Wow. Nearly as brutal and about 10,000 times less powerful. Many of the Isbies on Earth are here because they are violently opposed to totalitarian government, or because they were so psychologically vicious that they could not be controlled by the old empire government. Consequently, the population of Earth is disproportionately comprised of a very high percent of such beings. The conflicting cultural, ethical, and moral codes of the Isbies on Earth is unusual in its extreme. The domain conquest of the central old empire planets was fought with electronic cannon. The citizens of the planets forming the core of government for the old empire are a filthy, degraded slave society of mindless, tax-paying workers who practice cannibalism, violent automotive racetracks, and bloody Roman circus-type entertainments are their only amusements. Wow. Sounds like Earth with 10 times the blood and gore, doesn't it? Pay your taxes and, be the Romans. Regardless of any reasonable justification we may have had for the using atomic weapons to vanquish the planets of the old empire, the domain is careful not to ruin the resources of those planets by using weapons of crude radioactive force. The current U.S. civilization is beginning to mimic some of the trappings of the civilization, especially in the design of airplanes, automobiles, ships, trains, and telephones. Likewise, buildings in the cities of Earth are thought to be modern or futuristic if their design resembles the architecture of the old empire. Wow. That's all I can say. This is kind of scary, people. The government of the old empire, before being supplemented by the domain, was comprised of beings who posed a very craven intelligence, very much like those Axis powers during your recent World War. Those beings manifested precisely the same behavior as the galactic government that exiled them into eternal imprisonment on Earth. They were a gruesome reminder of the ageless maximum that an Isbie will often manifest the treatment they have received from others. Kindness fosters kindness. Cruelty begets cruelty. One must be able and willing to use force tempered with intelligence to prevent harm to the innocent. However, extraordinary understanding, self-discipline, and courage are required to effectively prevent brutality without being overwhelmed by the malice that are motivated the brutality. There's lots to be said there. I think we could do a whole show by just dissecting that. Self-discipline, courage are required to effectively prevent brutality. There you go, people. Only a demonic, self-serving government would employ a logic or science to conceive that an ultimate solution to any problem is to murder permanently. Wow. Is that not scary? Logic or science? And I've heard this. Oh, it is a self-serving government that would employ logic or science to conceive that an ultimate solution. Well, just be ready. When they say ultimate solution, you know what they're talking about. Erase the memory of every artist, genius, skilled manager, and inventor, and cast them into a planetary prison together with political opponents, killers, thieves, perverts, and disabled beings of an entire galaxy. Once the Isbys expelled from the old empire arrived on Earth, they were given amnesia and hypnotically tricked into thinking that something else had happened to them. The next step was to implant the Isbys into biological bodies on Earth. The bodies became the human populations of false civilizations, which were designed and installed in the minds of the Isbys to look completely unlike the old empire. All of the Isbys of India, Egypt, Babylon, Greece, Rome, and medieval Europe were guided to patterns and built the culture and developments of these societies based on the standard patterns developed by the Isbys of many earlier similar civilizations on Sun Type 12 Class 7 planets that have existed for trillions of years throughout the universe. In the earliest times, the Isbys sent to prison Earth lived in India. They gradually spread into Mesopotamia, Egypt, Mesoamerica, Arcadia, Greece, Rome, medieval Europe, and to the New World. They were hypnotically commanded to follow the pattern of a given civilization by the old empire, the prison operators. This is an effective mechanism to disguise the actual time and location from the Isbys imprisoned on Earth. The languages, costumes, and culture of each false civilization are intended to be reinforced amnesia because they do not remind the Isbys on Earth of the original old empire planets from which they were deported. On the very far back track of time, these types of civilizations tend to repeat themselves over and over. Because the Isbys who created them become familiar with the certain types, patterns, styles, and stayed with them, it is a lot of work to invent an entire civilization, complete with culture, architecture, language, customs, mathematics, moral values, and so forth. It is much easier to just replace and copy based on a familiar and successful pattern. Don't you ever notice that history, it just repeats itself over and over? Styles come in and styles go out. It's long hair this year, next year short hair. Dresses are long, then they're up to the knees, and they're mini skirts, then they go back down to the knees, and they're, clothes, hats. They just repeat, do over, repeat, do over, repeat. The Sun type Class 12, Class 7 planet is the distinction given to planet inhabited by a carbon-oxygen-based life forms. The class of planet is based on the size and radiation intensity of the star, the distance of the planetary orbit from the star, and the size, density, and gravity and chemical composition of the planet. Likewise, flora and fauna are designed and identified according to the star type and class of the planet they inhabit. We'll see. We didn't know that. But obviously, there's more planets out there than this one that are like that. We just don't know it. On the average, the percentage of planets in the physical universe with a breathable atmosphere is relatively small. Most planets do not have an atmosphere upon which life forms, feed as on Earth, where the chemical composition of the atmosphere provides nutrition to plants and other organisms, which in turn support other life forms. When the domain force brought the Vedic hymns to the Himalayas region 8,200 years ago, some human societies already existed. The Aryan people invaded and conquered India, bringing the Vedic hymns to the area. The Vedas were learned by them, memorialized, and carried forward verbally for 7,000 years before being committed to written form. During that span of time, one of the officers of the domain expeditionary force was incarnated on Earth as a Vishnu. He is described many times in the Rig Veda. He is still considered to be a god by the Hindus. Vishnu fought in the religious wars against the old empire forces. He is a very able and aggressive Isbi, as well as a highly effective officer who has since been reassigned to other duties in the domain. So Vishnu was an Isbi. He just was filling his part. This entire episode was orchestrated as an attack on the revolt against the Egyptian pantheon installed by the old empire administrators. The conflict was intended to help free humankind from in-planet elements of the false civilization that focused attention on many gods and superstition ritual worship demanded by the priests who managed them. It is all part of the mental manipulation by the old empire to hide their criminal actions against the Isbis on Earth. Well, that is just terrible. The priesthood or the prison guards were used to help reinforce the idea that an individual is only a biological body and is not an immortal spiritual being. The individuals have no identity. The individuals have no past lives. The individuals, wow, they're part of the Catholic Church, aren't they? The individual has no power. Only the gods have power. And the gods are a contrivance of the priests who intercede between men and the gods. They serve. Men are slaves to the dictates of the priests, who threaten eternal spiritual punishment if men do not obey them. Yep, that's the religion. That's the Catholic religion. That's all of the religions put together. What else would one expect on a prison planet where all prisoners have amnesia and the priests themselves are prisoners? The intervention of the domain force on Earth has not been entirely successful due to the secret mind control operation of the old empire that still continues to operate. The battle was waged between the old empire forces and the domain through religious conquest. Between 1500 BCE and 1200 BCE, the domain forces attempted to teach the concept of individual, immortal, spiritual being to several influential beings on Earth. One such instance resulted in a very tragic misunderstanding, a misinterpretation and misapplication of the concept. The idea was perverted and applied to mean that there is only one Isbi instead of the truth that everyone is an Isbi. Obviously, this was a gross incomprehension and an utter unwillingness to take responsibility for one's own power. Well, yeah, because you already had that out there, and they thought one way, and you mix it together, and somebody misinterpreted it. Started a whole new religion. The old empire priests managed to corrupt the concept of individual immortality into the idea that there is only one all-powerful Isby, and that no one else is or is allowed to be an Isby. Obviously, this is the work of the old empire amnesia operation. It is easy to teach this altered notion to beings who do not want to be responsible for their own lives. Slaves are such beings. As long as one chooses to assign responsibility for creation, existence, and personal accountability for one's own thoughts and actions to others, one is a slave. You know, I'm going to print that out and I'm going to put it up, and that is going to be, you know, I don't want to be a slave. As long as I don't choose, as long as one chooses to assign responsibility for creation, existence, and personal accountability for one's own thoughts, actions to others, one is a slave. I had to read that over, people. You ought to remember that. That is important. Do you assign responsibility for your life, your actions to somebody else? If you're in some of those religions, you do. If you're in there and you say, oh, yeah, the devil made me do it. Oh, that was God's works. This was this was that. You know, you're assigning responsibility to somebody else. Oh, yeah, the God of this will do it. The God of that will do it. Oh, yeah. The Holy Spirit or Jesus. Jesus will do it, man. Jesus will take care of me. Jesus will save me. No, you're assigning the responsibility to that God person or somebody else and not taking responsibility for yourself. Just do it. If you do something wrong, be responsible for it. Be responsible for yourself. You know, assign your responsibility to you. As a result, the concept of single monotheistic God resulted as and was promoted by many self-proclaimed prophets, such as the Jewish slave leader, listen to this, such as the Jewish slave leader Moses, who grew up in the household of the Pharaoh, Hemotep III, and his son Akhenaten, and his wife Nefertiti, as well as his son Tutankhamun. The attempt to teach certain beings on earth the truth that they are themselves Isbys was part of the plan to overthrow the fictional, metaphorical, and anthro-metaphoric panoply of gods created by the old empire system, or the mystery cult called the Brothers of the Serpent. Oh boy, have you heard of that one? Known in Egypt as the priest of They were, remember, you have to say Amen. There you go. They were a very ancient secret society within the old empire. The pharaoh, Akhenaten, was not a very intelligent being and was heavily influenced by his personal ambition for self-glorification. He altered the concept of the individual spiritual being and embodied the concept in the sun god, Athene. His pitiful existence was soon ended. He was assigned by Maya and Perifer, two of the priests of or Amen, Amun, or Amen, which the Christians still say, who represented the interests of the old empire forces. So there you go. Don't say Amen. You're still repeating the words of the old empire. Amen. No, just Amun, Amun, Amen. No, don't say it. You're just repeating it. Okay, the idea of the one God was perpetuated by the Hebrew leader Moses while he was in Egypt. He left Egypt with his adopted people, the Jewish slaves, While they were crossing the desert, Moses was intercepted by the operative of the old empire near Mount Sinai. Moses was tricked into believing that his operative was the one God through the use of hypnotic commands, as well as technical and aesthetic tricks, which are commonly used by the old empire to trap Isbis. Thereafter, the Jewish slaves who trusted the word of Moses implicitly have worshipped a single God they call Yahweh. The name Yahweh means anonymous, as the Isbi who worked with Moses could not use an actual name or anything that would identify himself or blow the cover of the amnesia prison operation. The last thing the covert amnesia hypnosis prison system wants to do is to reveal themselves openly to the Isbis on Earth. They feel that this would restore inmates' memories. Maybe that's why we don't see UFOs, because it would restore some of our memory. This is the reason that all traces of physical encounters between operatives of space civilizations and humans is very carefully hidden, disguised, and covered up, denied, or misdirected. This old empire operative contacted Moses on a desert mountaintop and delivered the 10 hypnotic commands to him. These commands are very forcefully worded and compelled an Isbi into an other subservient to the willing of the operator. These hypnotic commands are still in effect and influence the thought patterns of millions of Isbis thousands of years later. Incidentally, we later discover that the so-called Yahweh also wrote, programmed, and encoded the text of the Torah, which, when it is read literally or it is decoded from in its decoded form, will provide a great deal more false information to those who read it. Ultimately, the Vedic hymns became the source of nearly all of Eastern and the religions, and were the psychological source of the ideas common to Buddha, Lazuni, and Zoroaster, and other philosophers. The civilizing of influences of these philosophies eventually replaced the brutal idolatry of the old empire religions and were the true genesis of kindness and compassion. You asked me earlier why the domain and other space civilizations do not land on Earth or make their presence known. Land on Earth? Do you think we are crazy or want to be crazy? It takes a very brave Isbi to come down through the atmosphere and land on Earth, because this is a prison planet. When a very uncontrolled with a psiotic population, and no Isbi is entirely proof against the risk of entrapment. So in other words, if you're an alien, you come here and you get killed, you could get trapped in the system. As with the members of the Domain Expeditionary Force who were captured in the Himalayas 8,200 years ago. No one knows what the Isbis on Earth are going to do. We are not scheduled to invest we are not scheduled to invest the resources of the domain to take total control of all the space surrounding the area at this time. This will occur in the not too distant future, about 5,000 Earth years, according to the time schedule of the domain. Remember, if you're dealing with millions or trillions of years, 5,000 years is a blink of an eye. At this time, we do not prevent transports from other planetary systems or galaxies from continuing to drop Isbis into the amnesia force screen area. Eventually, this will change. In addition, Earth inherently is a highly unstable planet, It is not suitable for settlement or permanent inhabitation, or any substantial civilization. This is part of the reason why it is being used as a prison planet. No one else would seriously consider living here for a variety of simple and compelling reasons. One, the continental land masses of Earth are floating on a sea of molten lava beneath the surface, which causes the land masses to crack and crumble and drift continually. Two, because the liquid nature of the core, the planet is largely volcanic and subject to earthquakes and volcanic explosions. Three, the magnetic poles of the planet shift radically about every 20,000 years. This causes a greater or lesser degree of devastation as a result of the tidal waves and climatic changes. And then we already knew that, right? Okay, I gotta get a drink of water here. But thank you all for joining me. Okay, 4. Earth is a very distance from the center of the galaxy and from any other significant galactic civilization. This isolation makes it unsuitable for use, except as a pit stop or jumping off point along the way between galaxies. The moon and asteroids are far more suitable for this purpose because they do not have any significant gravity. Earth is a heavy gravity planet with heavy metallic soil and dense atmosphere. This makes it treacherous for navigational purposes. The fact that I am in this room as a result of an in-flight accident, in spite of technology of my aircraft and my extensive enterprise as a pilot, are proof of these facts. 6. There are approximately 6 billion Earth-like Sun Type 12 Class 7 planets in the Milky Way galaxy alone, not to mention the vast expanses of the domain and the territories we will claim in the future. It is difficult to stretch our resources to do much more than a periodic reconnaissance of Earth, especially when there is no immediate advantages to invest resources here. On Earth, most beings are not aware that they are Isbys or that there are spirits of any kind. Many other beings are aware of this, but nearly everyone has a very limited understanding of themselves as an Isby. One of the reasons for this is that Isbys have been waging war against each other since the beginning of time. The purpose of these wars have always been to establish domination by one Isby or a group of Isbys over another. Since an Isby cannot be killed, the objective has been to capture and immobilize Isbys. This has been done in a nearly unlimited variety of ways. The most basic method to capture and immobilize an Isby is through the use of various kinds of traps. Isby traps have been made and put in place by many invading societies, such as the one that established the old empire, beginning about 64 trillion years ago. Traps are often set up in the territory of the Isbys being attacked. Usually, a trap is set within the electronic wave of beauty to attract the interest and attention of an Isby. When the Isby moves towards the source of the aesthetic wave, such as a beautiful building or beautiful music, the trap is activated by the energy put out by the Isby. One of the most common trap mechanisms uses the Isby's own thought energy output. When the Isby tries to attack or fight back against the trap is activated, and the energy by the Isby's own thought energy. The harder the Isby fights against the trap, the more it pulls the Isby toward it, keeps them stuck in the trap. Throughout the entire history of this physical universe, vast areas of space have been taken over and colonized by Isbys. There are Isby societies who invade and take over new areas of space in this fashion. In the past, these invasions have always shared common elements. The overwhelming use of force of arms, usually with nuclear or electronic weapons. 2. Mind control of the ISBs in the invaded areas through the use of electronic shock, drugs, hypnosis, erasure of memory, and the implantation of false memory or false information intended to subjugate and enslave the local ISB population. 3. Takeover of natural resources by invading ISBs. 4. Political, economic, and social slavery of the local population. Wow, this describes so much more than we are really knowing about. These activities continue in present time. All of the ISBs on Earth have been members of one or more of these activities in the past, both as an invader or as a part of the population being invaded. There are no saints in this universe. Very few have avoided or been exempt from warfare between ISBs. ISBs on Earth are still the victims of this activity at this very moment. The between lives amnesia administered to the ISBs is one of the mechanisms of elaborate system of the old empire. ISB traps that prevent an ISB from escaping. This operation is managed by an intellect renegade secret police force of the old empire, using false provocation operations to disguise their activities in order to prevent detection by their own government, the domain, and its victims of their activities. They are mind control methods developed by government psychiatrists. Earth is a ghetto planet. Get it? We're a ghetto planet. Jeez, can't tell that ain't happening. It is a result of the intergalactical holocaust. ISBs have been sentenced to Earth either because they are too viciously insane or perverse to function as part of any civilization, no matter how degraded or corrupt, or they are a revolutionary threat to the social, economic, and political caste system that has been so carefully built and brutally enforced in the old empire. Biological bodies are specifically designed and designated as the lowest order of entity in the old empire caste system. When an ISB is sent to Earth and then tricked or coerced into operating in a biological body, they are actually in a prison instead of a prison. They are actually in a prison inside a prison. You get that? That just blows my mind. You're in a prison inside a prison. In an effort to permanently and irreversibly rid the old empire of such untouchables, the external identity, memory, and abilities of every ISB is forcibly erased. This final solution was conceived and carried out by the psychological criminals who are controlled by the old empire. The mass extermination of untouchables and prison camps created by Germany during World War II were recently revealed. Likewise, the ISBs on Earth are the victims of spiritual eradication and eternal slavery inside frail biological bodies inspired by the same kind of craven hatred in the old empire. The kind of creative inmates of Earth are continuously tortured by butchers and lunatics who are controlled by the old empire prison operators. They are the so-called civilizations of Earth, from the age of useless pyramids to the age of nuclear holocaust, have been a colossal waste of natural resources, a perverted use of intelligence, and an overt oppression of the spiritual essence of a single ISB on the planet, or every ISB on the planet. The domain sent ships to every corner of the universe in search of hell. Their quest could end on Earth. What greater brutality can be inflicted on anyone than to erase the spiritual awareness, identity, ability, and memory that it is the essence of oneself? The domain has, as yet, been unable to rescue the 3,000 ISBs of the Expeditionary Force Battalion. Either they are forced to inhabit biological bodies on Earth. We have been able to recognize and track most of them for the past 8,000 years. However, our attempts to communicate with them are usually futile, as they are unable to remember their own true identity. The majority of lost members of the Domain Force have followed the general progression of Western civilization from India into Middle East, then to Chaldea and Babylon, into Egypt through Arcadia, Greece, Rome, and into Europe, to the Western Hemisphere, and then all around the world. The members of the Lost Battalion and other ISBs on Earth could be valuable citizens of the Domain, not including those who are vicious criminals or perverts. Unfortunately, there has been no workable method conceived to emancipate the ISBs from Earth. Therefore, as a matter of common logic, as well as official policy of the Domain, it is safer and more sensible to avoid contact with the ISB population of Earth until such time as the proper resources can be allocated to locate and destroy the Old Empire force screen and amnesia machinery and develop a therapy to restore the memory of an ISB. And there we go, chapter 9. I thought that one was a long one. Okay, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that one. Really good information. I swear you need to read that part over and over and over. And that's how it goes. So with that, go out and make it a great day. Thank you for joining me. This was a long one. Oh boy. We'll be back Saturday night as always. So join me then. Thank you for coming and have a great day. Remember, go out and do something nice for your neighbor. Remember, we're all slaves on this planet. We're up in a prison, inside a prison. If you can figure out what that means, let me know. It's like a riddle. Okay, remember, everybody, be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. Love you all.